Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 58967 Glacier Avenue here in St. Helens, located at the front of the home. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street looking at the front of the house. We are currently to the left of the front doorway. We're lining up pretty nicely with the front left corner of the house, in fact. Just a few feet in from that. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is running. We're going to zero out at the base of the cleanout. Off we go. Got a few cobwebs to clean off the lens here really quick, and then we'll zero out. Alright, away we go here. Nice clean flow line right there. That is exactly how you want your line to look. I've been on the luckiest run here the last few days. I have never had this many clean lines in a row in my 13 years and almost 25,000 scopes. Seeing a flow line that clean is extraordinarily rare, especially for a home that's been here for as long as it has. Camera is upside down right now if you're wondering why the water's at the top of the screen. The water is not flying through the air. Probably figured that out, just in case you didn't. A little bit of standing water. We're probably going to hit a transition joint. There it is. The reason I know that, you've done as many scopes as I have, you start to realize that is about the most common location in a sewer line to get settling. Doesn't make it a good thing, but it is by far the most likely spot to get a belly. And then we're into a little more significant area of standing water here, which we're going to take a look at on the way out. That water line right now it's a pretty good distance over the top of the camera head. The line there is almost fully submerged. And I'm only running a sink right now, on not even full bore. So what we're looking at here is pretty accurate. So bellies do not guarantee blockages will occur, especially in plastic pipe. But when I get a section that lengthy, you start getting into the realm where, you know, as it sits right now, there's not a gargantuan sum of buildup in the line, but when you get enough standing water, you start getting away from treating it nicely does the job to, you know, where treating it nicely, depending on the volume going down the line, you can still get buildup. There's a lot of bellies where, as long as you're treating the line as it's supposed to, it will never affect functionality. This one's fairly lengthy. It's got a reasonable amount of water depth to it. It's one that starts to lead more towards, you know, has the potential anyway to start developing buildup even under proper scenarios. But, you know, the plus side you've got here, this is one I am going to recommend you fix most likely. We'll see how it looks when it drains out, but it looks like you've got probably 2 to 3 inches of water in the line there for most of the length of the 30-34, if not all of it. So anyway, if repairs are not done, what you want to do, I think it's a very reasonable ask to have the line jetted. Again, the line does not have outrageous sums of buildup in it, but it's a fair ask to get the line down to just down to base. Get it cleared out. There's nothing left over from the previous homeowners. That way, anything that is built up in here, you know 100% is related to your living habits. The importance of that is what you want to do is rescope the line at about the 1-year mark. That's going to give you a baseline for how the line is handling your living habits, and you can better gauge how frequently you should be doing maintenance jetting to keep the line clean. If you treat it nicely and you're not putting cooking oil, grease, wipes, flushable wipes, junk like that down the pipe, you should be able to keep the buildup fairly to a fair minimum. The tricky part is when you start getting a large household, especially with children. You know, a house like mine with 4 little kids in it, where just about all of them are still wadding their toilet paper up like a softball. That's the situation that becomes more concerning, and or under abusive scenarios where wipes and paper towels and things like that go down it. A belly this length, it will undoubtedly catch every solid that comes through the sewer line. There's nothing you flush down this pipe is going to make it from point A to point B in one flush. It's going to take a myriad of water flow to get all the way out there. So, you know, if it's just a couple adults in the house that know what and what not to put down the line, it's pretty unlikely to lead to a problem. But you get a larger household in here, that's where it becomes a little more concerning. So, and not knowing what the current occupancy is, you know, if there's only been 1 adult living in here, you're not always going to get a good gauge on how buildup is occurring based on your more normal situation, which is usually a fuller house of a couple adults, 2 kids or so, if not more. So, anyway, we'll go into that more here in a second. We're going to go locate the line here while it drains out. Alrighty. So we have quite a shallow depth here, which I have a feeling has a lot to do with why this thing bellied out. You're only at about 4 foot 6 inches deep at the main lateral, which is extremely shallow. That's about half the depth of the average main lateral on a regular street. You get roads with a lot of houses with basements on them or in them. You know, your mains are usually in the more 10, 12 foot plus depth realm. So anyway, line should be fully drained off at this point here. Start pulling back in now. So right now, I'm doing kind of a quick pull back. This is to help give me an idea as to how high that water is over the camera. I do that quick pull back like that. If you've got about 2 inches or less of water, you'll see the water pull down below the camera lens. And right now we're over that. We're fully submerged here at this point. So anyway, that depth on that main though does make things trickier. You've got a lot tighter tolerances to grade this puppy. Yeah, you've got about 4 inches of standing water in the line at its worst point. If you look up ahead, right now it's on the bottom of the screen. You can see the debris sticking to the top of the pipe there. It's an indication the line has... It doesn't mean it's backed up necessarily, but that does tell you it is clogging and filling all the way up to the top of the pipe, and then likely breaking loose under head pressure. That's a line that's basically, you know, at least in some scenarios, is functioning based off of head pressure, not just gravity flow. It's not really what you want. You know, assuming that this has not been jetted preemptively, based on the buildup I see here, it doesn't appear to. Otherwise, I would expect that stuff there at the top of the pipe would be gone. We're getting a fairly natural state look at this line, I think, right now. I'd be interested to know how many people have been living here. You know, if it's only one person you've got built up like that, you know, you can kind of imagine what it would look like if you had 4 or 5 at, you know, higher volume. But anyway, we're going to go locate and see where we are here. But that belly there runs from about 44 feet to 69 feet. It's quite a lengthy section. All right, about 4 foot 3 inches here. And I'm going to snap a photo of this. It's raining really hard today. My marking in the road and sidewalk will likely disappear. The one in the dirt, the belly starts in the bark dust area just barely before the sidewalk. It's about where the yard meets the sidewalk. And that starts at basically the front left corner of the property. That's as you face this house from the street. Line orients over that direction to that side of the property. That joint there has got a couple dings on it. It looks like this kind of a rougher socket. It was made and then sand it down very nicely. And then more standing water here. And a lot of times, I was hoping that was going to go through a little bit of a dive there. Let me push back out and see if it's got much. It really doesn't nosedive much. It's ideal when it does, honestly. You've got a belly. It's a spot where you can earn some grade back. You know, so this belly is obviously a smaller one. It's very close to the rest of the belly. It's almost continuous with it. You've got a little bit of a break between the two. If you're going to fix the belly in general, honestly, I would take it back to this point, and you will likely have to. And this is where you got to consult a repair company and have them kind of look at the depth throughout the sewer line. There's a lot of scenarios, especially when you're dealing with a main lateral that's this shallow, and a line that does not... I'll check for any nosedives in the line where you can earn some grade back. But sometimes, let's say you've got a 20-foot belly. You know, this one, it's a little bit more than that. Looks like you're closer to about 25 foot of the main part of the belly, and then another 5-foot section right here. So, in this case, let's say you've got a 30-foot belly. There's a lot of cases like this one where you don't have a lot of depth to work with, where you're not just fixing 30 feet of pipe. You're having to take that repair back 40, 50 feet. And if it starts looking like a scenario where you're going to have to redo the entire sewer line, in my opinion, that is overkill. I would rather see people do periodic hydrojetting and be mindful as to what's going down the line than be ripping this whole line out end to end in order to correct that belly. Again, I want to reiterate, it's not, not that the belly can't cause problems. It certainly can. Based on the buildup that's in the line right now, I'm not seeing a lot of evidence of major situations that have happened in the past. I also never know in some of these cases, though. People are becoming a lot more savvy these days, and sometimes they're aware of their bellies, and they hydrojet them preemptively before a sale to kind of spiff things up and minimize the look of stuff. So not knowing if that's occurred here or not, going based off on what we have. I mean, you heard me talking about how clean that flow line was. However, if you look at the top of the sewer line there, the debris you have on the top of the line indicates a backup has indeed occurred. If you see the difference in cleanliness between the flow line and the top of the pipe, that is a sign there that a blockage and a backup has indeed occurred in the past. So this is what I'm going to recommend to fix on, you know, and this is where you'd have to consult a repair company to see the feasibility of it, if it can be fixed as it sits. You know, if it's just a good old-fashioned settling issue due to uncompacted soil, you can likely keep the configuration you've got here without overdoing it too much. But some of these do require a much larger section be updated or repaired in order to fix the belly. All right, and then so I took the markings even further back. The bellies are so close together that it's, you know, this is one, because of the tolerances you've got, you're going to have to take it likely back to this point at least. I'm getting about 4'6", 4'7" here. And I'm kind of in the planter area at the front left corner where all the ivy and a little tree is at there. It's a decent sized tree anyway. I'll try and show that with the camera here in a second. Anyway, I recommend a repair on that. To correct the belly, I highly recommend you rescope the sewer line afterwards, and you've got to do that when the trench is closed, not when it's open. This line, for instance, had you scoped it at inception during the open trench, the thing probably would have looked perfect. It's not until you put weight on top of these things that you catch the settling problems and they shift on you. So anyway, I'm fairly pleased with what I'm seeing at the top of the pipe there. There is an indication a backup has occurred, but I'm not seeing super thick buildup like it's happening over and over and over again. But that debris there at the top of the pipe gets there by one process and one process only. That's by backing up. There's no other way for that stuff to get there. All right, I'm flipped around here. We're now going back towards the home. Mostly focusing on, I specifically focus on everything that's underground. Once we go through the foundation wall, that pipe is exposed piping in the crawl space the home inspector looks at. So anyway, I'm not sure if this is a scenario where, you know, someone experienced a backup and then really changed their ways as it relates to how they treat the line, because the flow line throughout this thing is spotless, and rarely do people hydrojet backwards. It's one of the things I look for over my years doing this. The amount of times I've seen someone hydrojet backwards into a house to clean up buildup, I can about count on my one hand. Even when I recommend it be done, rarely does it actually happen. So the fact that it's clean going back into the house like this tells me this is probably the natural state of the line here. So I would like to know how many people have been living here, though, because that does make a difference. If it's just been one, you know, little old lady, for instance, or something, your line can be about made of Swiss cheese and it'll still function under low volume situations. So anyway, I'll have to go back and review the footage there, but it's from around 38 or 35 feet out to 69 feet. You basically have one continuous belly. At its best point, you've got about 2 inches of standing water. Well, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. At worst, it's fully submerged to 4 inches of water. So anyway, here's your clean out, and that's the front left corner of the house as you face this home from the street. The line orients and veers towards this kind of droopy looking tree here. Right in that area is where the line turns to go into that planter area, straightens out, and then shoots off into the road. So it's in that area there where that planter spot is at, where the belly begins and then extends all the way to the other side of the road or close to it. Gets a little bit beyond halfway across the street. If no repairs are done, as the line sits right now, it's actually got a little less buildup in it than I thought it did. There is some in there, don't get me wrong. It's not in dire need of cleaning, but it would be a nice gesture to get everything down to base. That way, when you go to rescope in a year, if it doesn't get fixed, everything you're looking at is yours, and you know how to adjust your living habits accordingly. The big thing is keeping it to folded toilet paper. No cooking oil, no grease, fats in general. That stuff builds up like crazy in bellies. Wipes, paper towels, that includes flushable wipes too. They are terrible. Do not put them down this thing with a belly especially. You want to try and treat it kind of like a septic system. The plus side you're working with here is that your standing water at least starts a decent distance away from the home. You've got about, in total, between the foundation wall and that belly, probably a good 45 feet. We had to go back about 10, 12 feet from the clean out to get to the foundation. So you've got some decent leeway in here, which develops and creates head pressure to help push blockages through. But that's only really going to work out in scenarios where your debris is made out of disintegrating items like toilet paper, stuff like that. So you get it loaded up with wipes and paper towels, it can withstand a huge amount of head pressure without breaking loose. So first and foremost, I'd be aiming for repairs on this thing. Otherwise, rescope and clean as needed, and do that periodically to keep an eye on things, so you don't end up with a backup occurring. Otherwise, the rest of the line here is in good condition, clean, has good flow. Overall, the line all appears to be intact, albeit it has settled. I don't see any obvious locations where the pipe looks broken. Plastic pipe can settle quite a lot without breaking. So there's at least that kind of going for you. But ideally, I'd get this repaired. And I would start with contacting the city to see if they take responsibility in the roadway or from the right-of-way out here. You know, it's entirely possible the city does maintain that end of the line, and it may not even be the homeowner's problem. Anyway, as the line currently sits, being that it is not blocked up and backing up actively, this is a functioning sewer line, but it is draining slower than it should. And that slow drain is what can lead, or has the potential to cause the buildup and blockages and whatnot. So ideally we have a more adequate flow.